Matthew chapter 26, 36 to 46. Agony in Gethsemane, and the word we are featuring is number 4421, a cup. And we will continue with the verbs, but now we're going into the present tense, something that was happening at that time that was being written. It begins in verse 36. Tote erkate met avton o Isus is horion legomenon Gethsemane. Then Jesus comes with them with the 12 disciples, and there is a present. The first one is a passive. He's coming, not going, but he's coming. Third person singular being Jesus, unto a place called Gethsemane. Now, Gethsemane, nobody knows exactly where this was. It's a place that was fairly close to Bethany in Jerusalem, but today there's like 4 different places that call themselves the Gethsemane, different churches, and they sell trinkets and all sorts of stuff. And then it continues, Ke legi tis mathites, and he says to his disciples, another present, he, third person singular, kathisate avtu. Now you would say, well, that's present too, but it's an imperative right here, and the imperative has a exclamation that means sit here, he's saying. Eos u apelthon prosevxome aki, until of which going forth I should pray there. In verse 37, ke parlavon, there's a participle, verbal adjective underlined in red, ton petron, ketus theo ius zebedeu, taking with him Peter and James and John, the sons of Zebedee. Irxato lipiste ke adimonin. He began to fret and be anxious. Fretting. We all fret over things. We have problems. I fret over working on doing this video and something goes wrong. Doesn't record, and I have to do it over again. I fret. It's like, oh, wow. We all fret over something. The first mention in the Bible of a person fretting is Genesis 4:5, where it says, and Cain fretted exceedingly, and he became downcast in the face because of the rejection of his sacrifice by God. King Herod fretted over Salome when she danced, and he promised to give her whatever she wanted. She asked for the head of John the Immerser, Matthew 14:19. The disciples fretted when they heard about Jesus being killed in Matthew 17:23. He's going to be killed. The rich young man fretted because he had a lot of money and Jesus told him to give it away. And that was in Matthew 19:22. Then Peter, after the resurrection of Jesus, when he was at the Lake of Galilee or Sea of Galilee, fretted when Jesus the third time asked him if he loved him. That's in John 21:17. So he began to fret and be anxious. Adimonin, number 85, only appears 3 times in the New Testament, 2 times in this case. In another place in Philippians 2:26, where it says Epaphroditus was anxious, for you heard that he was sick. The only place that anxious word appears. Now, it may appear in a different form than here, but to be anxious is a verb. In verse 38, it says, Tote legi avtis. Then he says to them, Perilipo sestin e psyche mu eos thanatu. My soul is dejected unto death. We can be dejected unto death. It would be a horrible place to be. Older people that are getting close to the end of their life can be dejected fairly easily. Whenever they have something go wrong with their body, they get dejected. Oh, this is it. I'm going to be gone. Now I've got some kind of a growth down here on my leg. It's a cancer or whatever it could be. you become easily dejected. In Genesis 4:6, it says, "Why are you dejected, and why is your face downcast?" To Cain, when his sacrifice wasn't accepted, and God tells him why. Psalms 42:6, it says, "Why are you dejected, O my soul?" Being dejected. King Herod then was dejected over Salome, asking for the head of John, fretted, and now dejected just as Jesus. Same words are used. Luke 18:23, the rich man, young man, now he says, "But hearing these things, he became dejected, for he was rich exceedingly." So he fretted and then he dejected, the same two words, those places. And then he says, "Remain here and be vigilant with me." Being vigilant, we went through that earlier in Matthew 25, verses 1 to 13 in depth. Welcome to go back and see that video. 39, it says, "Ke pro elthon mikron," and having gone forth a little, epison epi prosopon avtu prosevhomenos. Ke legon. Having gone forth a little, he fell upon his face praying. And if anybody didn't need to pray, it would have been Jesus, God incarnate, but yet he prayed all the time. And so therefore, us that have all kinds of problems, we need to be praying more than Jesus. And but Jesus was down on his face praying. Ke legon, and saying, "Pater mu, O my Father, idinaton esti," if it's possible, "paraltheto ap emu to potirion tuto." Let this cup pass from me. So he didn't want to go to the cross and suffer and be tortured to death, and he fretted, and it was horrible. And he dripped drops of blood, it mentions in another gospel. And the cup is a figure of speech for his death. And it holds the wine, and the wine is also a figure of speech for the death of Christ. And we see that in Mark 10:38, where it says by Jesus, "Are you able to drink the cup which I drink, and the immersion which I am immersed to be immersed?" So it means more than just drinking a cup, even a cup of wine. It has to do with the death. Are you able to go through all the things that Jesus is going to go through? This is what he's asking. And then in John 18:11, Jesus says, "The cup which the Father has given to me, should I in no way drink it?" Well, now, the Father's not giving him a cup just to drink. It's a figure for the death, going through this process. It's a horrible thing. And this is what the cup means, it signifies. And then we see that by Paul in 1 Corinthians 11:26, where he says, "For as often as you should eat this bread and should drink this cup, the death of the Lord you announce until of which time he should come." So there it is right there. Paul is saying that by doing this, you're announcing the death of the Lord Jesus Christ, his suffering. Now you hear all these, songs, "Nothing but the blood of Jesus," and the blood, blood, blood. You never hear the cup, cup, cup. But for some reason, the blood, people have made all kinds of things about the blood. It's not the blood. If you didn't have the death of Christ, the blood wouldn't mean anything. But the shedding of the blood is death. That was how he died, by suffering and bleeding. And they, in the side, stabbed him in the side, and blood and water came out. And so he's praying that if he doesn't have to go through, and he uses the cup for a figure. And then he continues and says, "Plein uk os ego thelo," but not as I want. Thelo, the will of God, present active, now subjunctive, I should want, except not as I should want. There should be a should here, because it's in the subjunctive. And we go into this thelo, the will of God, a lot in Matthew 18, verses 11 to 14. And then it continues, Ke erkete pros tus mathitas, ke evriski avtus kathevdon tas. And he comes to the disciples, Peter, James, and John, and he finds there's the present active indicative, third person singular, active, it's happening, present, and indicative, it's not, it is happening. It's not may happen or should happen, but it's indicative. It's doing it. I found them sleeping. Ke legito Petro, and he says to Peter, Utos uk iskisate mian oren Grigorise metemu? Were you not able to be vigilant 1 hour with me? And the being vigilant with is something that we had in Matthew 25, verses 1 to 13. We went into that word, 11:27. You can go back there and read all about being vigilant. But Jesus is saying, can't you be vigilant with me for 1 hour? And also us, can we be vigilant going through the tough times? Are we going to sleep and hopefully think that we can sleep through them and they're going to go away? And he continues and he says, Grigorite, be vigilant. Again, ke prosevkaste, and pray. Again, praying is important. And being vigilant. These are things that God has put into the imperative. It's imperative for us. If we don't do this, things we're going to be in big trouble. Ina mi iselthite is pirasmon, that you should not enter into a test. And this is part of the Lord's Prayer. Lead us not into the test. Temptation is not a very good word to use for pirazo, this 3986. It's a test. God tests and Satan tests. The King James had it when Satan was doing it, they call it tempt, but I use test. And he continues, tomen pneuma prothimon, but the spirit is eager. They sarx asthenes, but the flesh is weak. Now that's not the soma. The body, the dead body is the soma, but the flesh is this body here. It's all made flesh and bones. It's weak. We want to do things. I want to do things, but I fail because of get tired or frustrated, all sorts of things that get in the way. Basically, the three main things: the devil, the world, and the flesh. The devil steps in, accuses the brethren, other people that you know, of something or other, and you fret over that. The world, all the things going on right now. Israel is ready to get attacked by Iran. And this is I think the 11th of August, 2024. And devil, the world, and the flesh, which we have just went through. And then in verse 42, it continues, Palin ek devteru, and from a second time, apelthon prosifxato, having gone forth, he prayed. So he's going back now and praying. Legon saying, Pater mu, iu dinate tuto to paterion parelthin apemu, ean mi avto pio genithito. O Father, if it's not possible for this cup, the death, to pass from me, except that I drink it, I should drink it, that I made a mistake here, and pio should be a subjunctive. Let your will take place. Again, the will of God. In verse 43, ke elthon, another participle, evriski avtus palin kathevdontos. And he, having come, he finds them again sleeping. And isen gor avton I aphthalmi vev vorimeni, for their eyes were weighed down. Well, that's a figure of speech also. Lots of figures of speech in the Bible. There's a book I have by Bullinger, Figures of Speech. Highly recommend it. And they weren't weighed down. The eyes weren't weighed down, but they're going down because you're sleeping. You're going tired, and you're going to go fall asleep. It's figure for that. In 43, ke aphis aftus, and allowing them, apelthon, he went and let them sleep, apelthon Pauline, are you going forth again, prosiv xato ek tritu, and he prayed a third time. Ton av ton logon, epon, the same word, having said to the Father, not going through the process of dying on the cross, if it was possible, but his will be done. In 45, tote erkate prostus mathitas avtu, then he comes to his disciples, ke legiavtis, and says to them, kathevdate tolipon, ke anapavis, sleep the remaining and rest, in the imperative. Oh, go ahead. Idu, behold, igikan iora, ke o ios tu anthropu paradidote is hieras amortolon. Behold, the hour approaches, and the Son of Man is delivered up into the hands of sinners. Present, now the passive, it's happening to him. He's not the one delivering up, but he's being delivered up. In the indicative, it's happening right now and presently in the third person. In the hands of sinners, which were the chief priests and the scribes, Pharisees, these people, the elders of the people. And then he says in 46, Agiris they, arise, agomen, idu, igikan o paradidus me. And now another should here, rise, we should lead on. And a lot of these things I did 30 years ago, learning more about Greek grammar as I go along, and I'm seeing these places, and sorry that I made these mistakes, but the Greek is not wrong. We should lead on is what it means. Behold, the one delivering me up approaches, and that is going to be continued in our next section, where Jesus is betrayed by a kiss.